Investigating a web source. A lot of the research we do takes place on the open web through Google. There is a lot of useful information on the web, but we sometimes have concerns about its credibility. One way to address this concern is to determine the source's authority. Does it reflect some special experience related to the topic? Does it come from a journalist or newspaper? Does it come from an academic journal? However, there are a few other quick strategies you can use to investigate a web source and determine if you want to include it in your research. These are also strategies you can use for any information on the web, and it's good to get in the habit of applying them to what you read. Let's take this source, an article titled Black Tweets Matter. I found this source when I was doing research to answer the research question, why is social media critical to the success of social justice movements? From the title of the source, it seems like it's relevant to my research topic, but before I decide to use it, there's a little investigation I want to do. Importantly, this investigating takes place before I read the article. I don't want the information in the article to influence my investigation. First, I want to know about the publication. If a source comes from a known publication, like the New York Times, it's easier to decide whether or not to use it. A lot of information we read on the web comes from websites we're not familiar with. To learn about the website, use the Wikipedia trick. Take the main URL of the website or publication, in this case smithsonianmag.com, and paste it into a new browser tab. Then add Wikipedia after it. This will 1, show you if there is a Wikipedia entry for the website, and 2, that entry will be your first search result. When you look at the Wikipedia entry, you can get important context about the website or publication. It's good to use Wikipedia for this before the About section on the website, because the Wikipedia entry is not created by the website itself. For example, if you stumbled upon information in a white supremacist publication, the publication likely wouldn't tell you they're white supremacists, but the Wikipedia entry for the publication would. In this case, the article is featured in Smithsonian Magazine, the official journal published by the Smithsonian Institution, a museum and research center in Washington, D.C. So now I know the article is affiliated with a museum. If I wanted to go further, I could also look over the Wikipedia entry for Smithsonian Institution, but I feel I have enough context for the publication. Next, I want to know about the author. What are their credentials or expertise on this topic? Sometimes the author's name will be in a different color text, indicating it's a link to more information. In this case, clicking on the author's name takes us to a very short bio. The bio tells us she's a writer for the New York Times Magazine and previously wrote on the topic of technology for New York Times, suggesting she has journalistic cred and expertise on the topic. If your information source doesn't have an author, it doesn't mean you have to discard it, but you'll probably want to do a little more digging into the publication or website if that's the case. Now I'll start to skim the body of the article. When I find an information source on the web, one of the first things I look for is the inclusion of hyperlinks in the text. In the same way that citations are used as evidence in a paper, hyperlinks are references. They reflect the sources the author consulted to write their article or post. If I can see that the author is citing their sources through links, I feel more confident about using the information source. Links are also useful in research because they will direct you to additional related sources on the topic. If I wanted to know more about the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite campaign, I might pay close attention to this sentence with a linked source. When I hover over the link, down in the bottom left side of the screen, I can see that the source is an article from the LA Times. It might be worth exploring this second source further, and I could access it by clicking on the link. Sometimes an article will include a claim or statistic without a citation. In that case, you want to verify that claim through other sources, and then maybe use one of those other sources instead. For example, let's take this claim. The Academy pledged to double the number of minorities, including women of color, in its ranks by 2020. If I wanted to cite this claim in my paper, first I'd want to confirm it. The best way to do this is to highlight the claim, copy it, and paste it into a new browser tab. If a claim is legitimate, multiple sources will confirm it. In this case, a New York Times article and the Academy's official website, Oscars.org, say the same thing. In my paper, I might want to use Oscars.org for my citation, since that is the original source for this piece of information. Notice that in our investigation of the website, we didn't consider that the URL is a .com or the number of ads on the website. Instead, we applied strategies to make informed decisions about the publication, author, references, and information itself in our investigation. Having done this, we're now ready to read the article itself. Remember, web sources can be useful in the research process. When considering a web source, before you read it, investigate the publication and author using Wikipedia. Look for references or citations through the inclusion of hyperlinks, and verify questionable claims through additional sources.